Hello, beautiful soul. It's David Ault. And if you are struggling with accepting or believing that you are a beautiful soul, then maybe you're in the right place. Maybe what we will explore in the few minutes together here is of value to you. And so thank you. Thank you ahead of time for joining and pausing and being with me here on the gathering. What we do here is maintain a very intentional aim towards unraveling or unbinding or uncovering all of the things that have layered us in a sort of forgetfulness. And what is sometimes really difficult to embrace and hold on to, particularly in our humanness, in this relative reality, is that it is so overwhelming in the human landscape with regards to separation and suffering and inequality and the constant cyclical uprising of bickering and warring that takes place. Understanding that it's kind of the name of the game here in this plane of existence, on this channel of activity, of soul incarnation. And so when you are caught in it, when you are overwhelmed by it, when all that you can do is to operate on a sort of survival instinct, which wants to retaliate back, which wants to protect. It's there's nothing unusual about that, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that because it's just baked into the game, into the experience. And yet there is this thing, call it evolution, if you will, the inevitable evolution, expansion of the soul. Remember, you're a beautiful soul. And that natural, innate evolution or expansion, you might even call it returning to our original essence, is also at play. And so you've heard so many things describe that, like the pain of all of this warring will keep pushing us and pushing us and pushing us until we don't have anything left in the playbook to give because we've run out of energy. There is a finite amount of energy to the degree that you can fight back. And at some point, there must be a surrendering. And in all things spiritual, that surrendering is actually a beautiful thing. It is an inevitability. It is a part of the journey of the evolution of the beautiful soul to come home is that moment when we exhaust all of that, when our searching and our grabbing and our projections and our hoping and even pending all of our worth on outer external things dries up, which it always will, we are left with this beautiful, soft surrender. And what's truly exquisite about that is that no one has to wait until you have exhausted all of the other things in the playbook. That at any given moment, we have the ability to flip that switch and to begin to look at how repetitively we have been told, we have been taught, we have been handed through allegory and metaphor and example the unrelenting cycle and inevitability of that exhaustion. One of my favorites, and one that I often think about, is the biblical reference of how you can't pour new wine into old skins. So, what does that metaphor mean? It means that the old skin represents the same old, same old. It means that we approach this human incarnation, this life in this singular channel, this dimension of separation with the same playbook. And so that playbook talks about strategy and how to optimize your time and how to stay ahead of everyone else, which is all a fallacy, really. It's just survival techniques in relative reality, but it has nothing to do with the bigger picture of what you are. And eventually, if all you do is apply your energies to that relative reality, then yes, you will exhaust it. Why? Because there's no solidity to it. You'll run out of strategies. Eventually, the strategies will dry up. And what will be left at our doorstep is the fickleness of humanity and the way in which we will continue to discard one another or continue to promote separation or participate in all of the cyclical battling and warring and othering that we've seen throughout the history of time. What is particularly challenging and what causes us to keep trying to pour new wine into old skins is that that's kind of what the collective does. When you look around, you can see the era repeating itself of where one side retaliates against the other. And you're supposed to pick a team, right? Even the warring of who is good and who is bad, or who is right and who is wrong, or who is spiritual and who is not, is all sort of this mask, this charade that we participate in, not because we are stupid, but because we are ignorant. And there's a difference there. Ignorance simply means that at the given moment in time, we are unaware. But the paradox of who we are as a beautiful soul is that there is still a part of us that is aware. That's the part that's asleep. And so when we run through the playbook of our warring and our survival tactics and the warmongering and doing what everybody else on our side of the fence is doing, when we exhaust that, then the part that is asleep starts to rumble and starts to come back to life. And it won't be stirred from that hibernation until we're ready, until there's enough of a surrender, until there's enough of a relinquishing of an allegiance to the warring and the othering, in order for that hibernation to begin to reawaken, for that awareness of our resilience and our true essence to come to light. And so I tell you this because I feel as though you are right there in it with all of us as we look at the world, as we look at the fear mongering, as we look at the flagrancy of inequality and anarchy that is being thrown in all directions. And you are rightfully where you need to be with regards to being scared and fearful and reactive. And I add to that, don't stay there. This isn't about repressing the relative reality, but it is about seeing it for what it is and going, do I still want to pick up the old playbook? Do I still want to march against something? Do I still want to use my voice and my willpower and my energies to keep fighting at the othering? Or do I want to take a step back? And in taking a step back, do I want to put the playbook down? Do I want to stop pouring new wine or new warring or new issues into the same old model? Acting as if I'm doing something new, but really all that I'm doing is repeating a cycle. Because once there is maybe some temporary victory here and I'm celebrating, the other opportunity of warring is coming to shore. And there's just no sustainability in that. But what does not experience fatigue and what does not rely on outer circumstances is this knowing and this instruction that whenever you're ready to finally be done with the exhaustive cycle, there is a whole new level of understanding. And I'm not going to say there's a whole new playbook because to reduce it to that is far too crude. It's more than that. It's just it's just the opening that keeps revealing itself and showing how by being willing, you don't have to have all the answers, but by being willing to step out of the line of doing what everyone else is doing, not blaming them because they've still got a little juice and that juice hasn't been exhausted yet. And that's fine. But if you're ready to cease pouring whatever resources or skills or talents that you have into old models, then what is next for you? What is an infusion of expansion? And I like to think of it this way. I'm sure you've heard this that nature abhors a vacuum. So how does this apply to this? Well, for example, if if you create a deliberate vacuum, meaning you don't pick up the playbook anymore and you go, I don't want to keep doing this. I I am willing to I am willing to stretch beyond my egoic reactive nature to fight, fight, fight. I'm willing to risk being judged by all of the other people who say, how dare you for not railing against or warring against the machine the way that we're all doing it. When you get to that place where you are willing to risk that in order to lean into something, and the new wine that must have a new vessel, a fresh vessel, new space, if you're willing to get to that, then and only then is there the experience of like a fog being lifted, of things that have been held back because we're simply not in a place to recognize them. Our ears are not tuned to hear the instruction and the wisdom and the clarity that wants to come and create this sort of symphonic leadership inside of us. We're not ready to hear that. But the moment that we surrender and we accept, or at least are willing to accept the idea that the pathway forward is to love it as it is, love what is, to begin to look at what it means and to have this history. I wrote this down about how what we keep doing is pushing things away, being very skilled at building these resistant energies and protection systems that, again, are fallible. In order to get to a place and recognize that, but continuing to do that, I'm just continuing my suffering. But what I'm doing, what I'm becoming more and more conscious of, is embracing rather than living in aversion. Okay. I think I've clarified this as much as as you can feel and understand in this moment. So when I create that space, then it must be filled. Nature abhors a vacuum. It must be filled. But here's the beautiful part about that. It isn't filled with the same old, same old. It's filled with clarity. It's filled with ripeness of connections of what the beautiful soul of you has long craved for. It's there as a soothing balm, a calm, a peace that is not reliant upon external circumstances. But here's a really beautiful one. It reduces the reactivity within us that so quickly escalates to fear. And when I tell you that we have been told this and told this and told this time and time again, and that it's not new information, simply means, and it goes back to that funny thing about an aha moment. The aha moment for you when the clarity breaks, when the clouds part, is not the first time that you have heard that. It's not the first time that that instruction or that teaching hasn't been offered to you and I. But it's just in that moment, there has been a surrender of sorts. There has been a beautiful exhaustion, the exhaustion of doing the same old, same old. The beautiful exhaustion of recognizing the old skin and how in Hinduism they talk about the snake shedding that skin. That as the snake sheds the skin, it's an illustration of a spiritual renewal. There is enough of a commitment to a spiritual renewal that all of a sudden the tendency to want to just react softens. It softens, and we're able to hear. There's all kinds of tools with that, right? Tools of one is to tell the truth. Tell the truth faster, as a friend of mine used to say in the 80s. Tell the truth faster, meaning take off the mask, cease participating in the masquerade, and share vulnerably. I don't know, or I'm afraid, or here's where I'm at. But in that, as you tell the telling of the truth then does not possess or contain any energy that is blaming anything external. It's saying, right now in this moment, in the relative reality, I feel stuck. I am exhausting the playbook and I'm willing to set the playbook down. That's what real telling the truth is. I'm really willing to stop pretending for the sake of being liked, for the sake of being approved. I'm willing to set the playbook down. And in doing so, again, the vacuum that is created is filled with gifts. It's filled with aha moments where, yes, the gift was presented before, but finally you and I are able to receive it. So putting new wine into old wineskins and the futility of that. It's been taught in Buddhism as Shoshin or beginner's mind. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but it says, but in the expert's mind, there are few. Hinduism, the shedding of the skin. In Taoism, it's the emptying of your cup. And as you begin to empty the cup and make yourself available, something new can fill it. But again, if we're walking around with our playbook and we're not setting the playbook down, that cup then just begins to be be filled with a sort of stagnant sameness where nothing new can be added. Oh, and Sufism, there is this beautiful poetry of renewal from Rumi where it says, try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you. Let life and all of its messiness live through you, meaning accept everything it is as it is. Love everything as it is, understanding that by doing that, you're not condoning it. You're allowing it to dissipate because until you and I can love what is, then what is and the isness of that we fear so much maintains its power. So even in Christianity, the mysticism of the dark night of the soul, the dark night of the soul is not anything to fear. It is a beautiful celebration that you and I perhaps have exhausted the playbook and we're ready for something new. And so I want to again invite you simply this. Notice, consider that until something changes here, personally, inward, nothing out there will change. And what if what is out there is causing suffering? We can't continue to expect it to change out there. If you're ripe and ready to put the playbook down, then all you have to do is repeatedly say to yourself, I am willing. I'm willing to open my heart. I'm willing to understand all that is required of me to love what is. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to feel. I'm willing to be in hyper recognition of all the beautiful assistance that now can come because I have made space for it. I have full belief, confidence, and am already celebrating the fact that by the fact that you're even entertaining this is a beginning point. I am here for you as always. Blessings.